It's me, Ari Dawson. You can call me Rashid. I'm an anthropologist and sociologist. Horror. When you think of horror, what are you thinking about? In horror movies, there's always one plot that terrifies the viewers. Well, it's supposed to terrify the viewers. That's why it's called a horror movie. What about real life horror? For example, you've been stalked by your ex-partner for a long time. Or someone broke into your house and hid under your bed. Or someone tried to kidnap you. I mean, horrible things happen in the world. They do. What it all comes down to is community neglect. The only true horror that exists, there's only one horror that exists. All other horrible experiences you have comes down to this horror. And that horror is community neglect. That's it. Just think about it. That crazy ex of yours that stalked you. That individual is obviously not mentally sound. Where was the community to intervene? Oh, by the way, how come the community brought forth such disturbing men? Or maybe your man was a crazy ex-girlfriend, crazy ex-wife. She came forth from a community that raised her. How come they raised such an unstable individual? I know some adults go the wrong way by their own effort. That happens. Nevertheless, we are shaped. So if someone is shaped in a dysfunctional and disturbing way, the community that shaped them is to blame for the fact they have later on. Simple as that. Why do you never hear of communities or representatives of communities on behalf of those communities taking accountability for their failures? Why? Because once a community admits that they failed, they are now obliged to become better. And that means self-reflection on a daily basis, becoming loyal and dedicated to improvement and to be better. If a community is not willing to make the effort to become better, that means they're narcissistic, they don't want to make anything true. Those same communities that are not making anything true are the same communities that have high regards for respect, boundaries, law and order, and all of that. So such communities demand one-sided loyalty. You are loyal towards them. They are guaranteed a yes. And if you ever give them a no to their expectations, they either put you in prison, or they make life hard on you, or they ghost you, or expel you, whatever. This is why in the world, accountability is a hard thing. Because accountability goes both ways. A community cannot demand you to be accountable when they're not accountable towards you. It doesn't go that way. A community cannot demand you to be responsible, but they're not responsible towards you. They can't tell you you're an adult, it's all on you now, but at the same time they expect you to be fully loyal and responsible to them, a collective of adults. It doesn't add up at all. So communities will always play the victim and point the finger at some villain who make life hard on them. Communities love to have villains, because as long as there's a villain around, you can always point your finger at the villain and nobody looks at anything else. If there's a serial killer on the loose, you can always point to the serial killer and everyone is distracted from noticing all the other bad stuff in the community. If you have a bunch of terrorists going around committing terrorist attacks, if that's what people believe, then nobody's going to notice that, hold on a minute, our own relatives are neglecting us, causing terror by putting us under stress. What the heck is this? What I'm saying is, communities in this world, 9 out of 10 times, will never apologize nor improve themselves. They won't. And if it happens that some improvement takes place, it's because of the effort of believers, or rarely the community has to uphold its reputation, so they enforce external improvement, which is not long-term improvement to begin with. External improvement is simply you mask the problem that goes on. For example, let's say a lot of children were sexually molested in a community, and people were not interested in dealing with the issue. Those children become adults, and as adults, they become troublemakers in the community. It's one to say you're grown men, grown women, and should behave yourself. The other thing is, why didn't the community behave towards them when they were children and couldn't help themselves? Now, this is a big embarrassment. So now, suddenly, the governor or president or the legislators in that area decide we're going to put the death penalty on child molestation. That policy change gives the impression as if they really care about the children. The reality is they've been neglecting their own children for decades, and now that the neglect is backfiring on them, they want to mask the real problem, which is their neglect, by coming with this hard policy. That's how it often goes in the world. They mask the problem, which is community neglect. The only horror that you will ever experience is community neglect, whether it's a haunted building or a great ex stalking you, or you realize that someone joked about killing you and all that. Whatever horrible thing you'll experience in life, it all stems from community neglect. Communities not admitting they failed. That's what it comes down to, because once you admit you failed, you have to also dedicate to improvement. That means also compensating for the costs. And that's something most people don't want to do nor be involved in. That's why when the victims of a community speak out, people immediately try to shame them or look for some fault of the fact of them to shame them with, or they try to label them as crazy or whatever. Why? Because if communities don't silence its victims, the victims will reveal how unreliable, untrustworthy, and unworthy that community is. And nobody wants to go through that. So that's why communities, if they cannot shut up the people they've disadvantaged, they'll give them some cheap compensation in form of money, or they'll just look for some villain to blame for everything that goes wrong. Community neglect is the only horror that really exists. Every other horror derives from it. So the question you need to ask yourself, anytime something tragic or something bad happens somewhere, where was the community? Anytime something bad or horrible happens, whether it's a crime or whether it's some tragic act, something like that, always ask the following question: where was the community? If we learn to ask this question more often, we will not be so easily deceived by politics. Politics is all about hiding the embarrassment and the blame of the public. That's all it is. That's all it comes down to. The public won't accept blame and the obligation to improve, so they will relocate the blame elsewhere. And the politician is the hitman or hitwoman assigned to achieve this. So, anytime you end up injured due to community neglect, don't expect people to believe you nor want to listen to you. They will not. And if you don't shut your mouth, they'll make you a target to get rid of you. So only expose the community if the Heavenly Father tells you to. And if you have enough backup to get away from those people. Because if you don't have any backup to get away from them and you expose them, you're a walking dead. Simple as that. Was it for now? Keep on agreeing with Christ and be at peace.